Hi guys, there was another question about making Playblast. That's basically useful for making animatics, and that's a way for seeing a preview of your animations. Let's say I have this situation here. Let's say I have a little environment, and this environment, what's happening is that I have a bunch of spheres, such as this one, and then this one, and then this one. So all three of these, I'm going to put them in here. I'm going to say there are some animations for them. Let's say this animation I want it to run for 5 seconds. So I'm going to go to Window, Setting, Preferences. Up here, I'm going to go to the time slider. I'm going to set it to be 25 FPS. It doesn't matter if you choose something else, but I feel like it helps if we all stick to the same number. I'm going to say the playback speed is 25 FPS. Then I'm going to ask myself, how many frames do I need? I basically need to be 5 seconds multiplied by 25. So I need 125 frames. So I'm going to come down in here and I'm going to change this number to 125. This number, the 125, and this one are the beginning and ending of the entirety of the scene. These two numbers, the middle ones, which is basically right now I say that 108, or this one I say that 36, this is for when the animation gets played for you. That is because if you have an animation that goes for 20 seconds, maybe you don't want to see the entire thing. Maybe you just want to see the seconds 18 and 19. You're focusing on that part of your animation. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and say, let's set a keyframe for all of these. So that's basically by pressing the S button in here. I'm going to go there, move all of them in here, press S again. I'm going to come back at the very beginning, push them up there, and then I'm going to make some random keyframes in between. The animation here is irrelevant. We just want to understand what happens when we try to, make some Playblast basically. So I'm gonna constantly, just move them around, and every time I move them around, I just make a new keyframe for them. So here and then maybe in here. So now I've gotten this thing that's just some animation is happening. The important thing you want to be asking yourself is that which part of this is going to be in the render? What am I going to see in the render? And that is not what you are seeing in your viewport. In fact, what you're seeing in your viewport is actually very, very confusing, simply because of this. If I resize my Maya's window like this, then which part of this is going to be rendered? Right now I have this very, very wide screen. Is this going to be my render? Obviously that doesn't make any sense. So you actually have to be able to see the size of your screen. I'm going to show you how we can actually fix that. To do that, I'm going to go here to View, and then I'm going to go to Camera Settings, and I'm going to show something called the Resolution Gate. There is a little hotkey for it in here, which is this button in here, which basically shows you your resolution gate. This shows you what is going to be in the renderable resolution. Right now, it is set at this weird number of 960 by 540. I don't like that. I'm going to go to my render settings up here. In the render settings, I'm going to choose it to be, let's say, full HD, which is HD 1080. So that is the size that I want to see for my screen, basically. And here, I'm actually going to scale this down. So this area, the area I am selecting right now, this is going to be my renderable area. This is what the camera is going to see. This is what's going to be rendered, and that's what we care about. Everything in the outside, which is outside the gate, is something that we can see what's going on, but we are not going to see it in the render. And if you want to make sure of that, you can just hit the render button once and see what's going on. So for me, however, I have this environment, and I'm going to say, well, maybe I want to be more focused on this area. So maybe I want my camera to do this. And keep in mind, this area, the area that is not within the gate, the center, that is what I'm going to see in my actual render. So here is what I really care about, rendering for whatever reason. And this is what I want to put in my preview, or what we call Playblast. To make a Playblast, I'm going to go to my time slider, anywhere on it. I'm going to hold the right mouse button, and at the very bottom there is something called Playblast, and I'm going to go to the option box of the Playblast so I can see the settings for it. Here are the settings that you really care about. You want to make sure you save it somewhere so you actually have it. You want to give it a name so you know where you're saving it and where what's going to be the name of it. Let's say my Playblast. So I'm going to save it over there. Then you want to choose a quality for it. Let's say I want to put a high quality. And then the most important one is here. What's the display size? Do you want to get it from the window, whatever is the size of the window? And that depends on the type of your computer. If you have a very good computer, very good display, and it can show you 4K, then it's obviously larger. If you're working on a display like mine, which is like a medium grade one is only shows a full HD, so it's a smaller one. So that's not really a good idea. If you want to be very meticulous about what you're doing, you say get it from the render settings. So whatever is in the render settings, set the size to be that. And I know in my case, the render settings is set to this number, HD 1080, which is 1920 by 1080 pixels. So it's a very specific number that I know that I want, and that's the number that's going to be maintained in here. So this is probably the most important setting that you can do. Depending on your computer, whether you're Mac or Windows, you might have to opt for different type of encoding. In here I can actually do encoding of H.264 for MOV video, or you have to do the other ones such as the AVIs in Windows. They all do a relatively decent job if you set the quality to be a good size, like a display size that is from your render settings, and it's a full HD. They should all do a decent job. Let's go ahead and hit the Playblast to see what we're gonna see. So I'm gonna run this. It's gonna take a little while, and as you can see, it has cropped my window because it wants to make sure it is the right size. It is the full HD that I wanted. So here I can play this, and it basically shows me the area of my animation that I wanted and the right size of it. It is a full HD video. I can actually prove it to you. If I go in here, I select this, I bring the settings of it, it tells me that this file is 1920 by 1080 and the encoder is H.264, which in this case doesn't really matter. Now, when I was making the video, I actually opted to keep the resolution gate, and that's simply because I want to see what's outside, and if I have an opinion about it, I want to change something, that's simply applicable in a situation like that. If you don't want to see the resolution gate, you can just go in here and you can turn it off. You can say, I don't want to see the resolution gate, but still, when I want to make a Playblast, I want to go in here and say the Playblast is from the render settings. Let's call this one Playblast 2. Hit the Playblast. Again, it's going to crop my window to only the areas that I care about, but this time I'm not going to see the resolution gate. It's a common practice to see the resolution gate simply because it helps us understand what we are working on. But I leave it to you to decide, which way you want to do it, whether you want to keep the resolution gate or you want to actually view it like the left one. But the important thing is that you set a resolution for your file, for your videos. You make sure that you want to render in a specific preset. It doesn't matter if it's HD 720 or 1080. If you can do 1080 better, if you want to opt for a slightly smaller resolution, that's also okay. But don't change it between your different scenes. That is where things go really bad. So don't have one scene that you render at full 1024, another scene at HD 720, because these two formats, they don't match each other anymore. So stick to one format. If you want to be really consistent, do everything as HD 1080 and everything at 25 frames per second. That would be like the like an ultimate gold standard of the things that we do in here, and it's going to make all of our lives a lot easier. You do that, and then when you go to your Playblast here, you say get the settings from render settings, and then it's going to make a Playblast that's exactly the same size that you wish to see your final video. And that's pretty much it.